welcome to Emotional Support Water Bottle with Hannah and Ailish.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Ailish. Feel like we have a lot to discuss today. First, if you follow us on our socials, you'll see that we went to the Renaissance Festival and did not make as much content as we wanted to.
It's very overwhelming.
Well, we also had a small snag.
Yeah.
We were about halfway there on Saturday when
we randomly, basically, it's like all the things lined up. Like we were listening to the new Lady Gaga Harley Quinn album. We listened to it like 3 times through and we're like, let's change it. If we would have changed that like 4 minutes earlier, we wouldn't have seen this. We would have went all the way down. And we saw the email notification that said they were closed because of a power outage.
Yeah. So then we just pulled off at the closest exit to try and regroup. We didn't know what the heck to do.
Like, what?
And we tried to find more information about what was going on. And then we were seeing conflicting reports. Some people said that they were there and they were told to just, come back in an hour and things might be back. Some people were already turning around and going home. So we didn't know what to do. And then we finally got some insight from somebody that we DM'd, and they said, no, it's fully closed. And then it seemed like there maybe was more damage than
they even said.
Yeah. But then once we ended up getting there, it didn't really look like it, but maybe they just did a good job cleaning up.
Right.
Yeah. So we drove the hour and a half back home, and luckily, we didn't wear our costumes. That would have been embarrassing because we went to a coffee shop, even though we were already embarrassed. We weren't really in clothes
prepared for that
to be in public. But then the next day, we had to regroup because Hannah had to figure out what to do with her kids.
Since we had the one day already taken care of.
So we ended up getting it figured out, and then we still didn't know if the power was back on Sunday.
And then they finally were like, it's still open even though the power's out, but they weren't very clear about some of the food and drinks are going to be limited. So we're like, what are we even going into?
And then we messaged that girl again and she said, well, maybe bring a cooler for water and food. And we're like, what the? So then they said that, we were on the road when we got that email. And then we got another update, or in that same update, it said 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
That they were going to tell us more, but that never happened.
They were like, the power's supposed to be back by 10 a.m. And we're like, okay, what if it's not? Is it still going to open? There's just nothing.
So we just kept going.
And people were there.
Yeah, we got down there. People were there. And it actually was a great day, besides the fact that it was pretty muddy.
Yeah, it was beyond muddy because the hurricane made its way over to Ohio.
Stupid them for doing it during hurricane season.
I know there's literally a comment maybe don't have Renfair during hurricane season. I'm like, is that a joke?
We are in Ohio.
Yeah, there is no hurricane season.
I know.
Anyway.
But so everything was pretty good. We had a lot of fun, and then it ended up, we felt a little washed out at the end because it started to rain pretty bad again.
It's your clothes get heavy when it's just that rain.
Yeah, Hannah's dress was just soaked. It totally absorbed the water. And so yours was really heavy. Mine had the tulle, so it wasn't that wasn't soaking it up. But yeah, it was
it was just really overwhelming, I feel like.
I will
not knowing what to expect. And I think had we not been jerked around the previous day, because that was a whole
day basically
wasted and in the car.
And then it just kind of, I don't want to say it ruined the weekend, but it threw the weekend off because we were planning on having Sunday to kind of relax.
Right.
And then, maybe do errands, clean, whatever we needed to do.
So it's you didn't get that extra day.
Yeah.
And it just felt not that we were like looking at the clock and stuff, but it was kind of like, well, we do have like a 3-hour drive back.
I know, yeah. And then because we have to work the next day. So once it started raining consistently, I think both of us were just over it. But it did feel like neither one of us wanted to be like, okay, we should go home. Like, because it was just like we wanted to still do stuff, but it was just becoming even more muddy, and we were now fully wet.
And that's like hard to walk in mud like that.
Yeah, like there were a few times where like my feet slid a little bit. In there. Yeah. But a girl we saw almost fell like right in the mud. That would have been horrible. So, I mean, it was cool. I wish that it would have just been better circumstances, because I think we would have had a more like positive outlook on it. But it was fun to dress up, and it was really cool to see, like, it was basically its own little village.
Yeah, it was super cute with like all the little vendor houses, and the food was good.
Yeah, but we didn't get to try as much things as we wanted.
And that felt like a whole thing too. And we didn't really know, like, we kind of kept getting lost a little bit. We're like, well, what do we do? Well, this one has too long of a line.
Yeah.
And then we had like, because then the card machines weren't working at first. And so we're like, we only have this much cash. And so that was like,
so there were so many things we're like, we can't do that. Yeah. And the ATMs weren't working either. So everything was totally, And then we felt like we didn't want to go into all the stores because of how muddy and wet we were. And some of them were pretty small. So
and there was like a lot of people going.
Yeah, so it just felt like if it would have been nicer weather, it would have been way more fun.
Yeah.
And then even to eat, like, we got these ribbon fries, which was huge portions. All the food was huge portions.
Was just like too big.
Which I don't know, like we kind of said, is that supposed to be on brand for Renaissance, or is it
like
just,
everything's just big mountains of food?
But once it kind of started raining, like it was kind of hard to find places to sit that had coverage from the rain. And then who wants to eat food when it's raining on it? So I wish that we could have gotten like those chocolate covered strawberries.
I know, like
and
all
the
cheesecake.
Treats. Yeah. We didn't get a turkey leg because we thought that was just absurd.
I know. I think if I could have like found somewhere private,
it's just.
But it was so big.
It was huge. I know. It was kind of crazy. Just people walking around with the turkey leg.
Maybe that would have been a good thing to get during Viking weekend.
Yeah, which I think is this coming weekend.
Sounds like.
But they did offer people could come on different weekends too. But I mean, we had planned to go this one, and so
I know. I think like in hindsight, maybe I would have tried that, but it was like,
I know.
It was too complicated.
Yeah, it really was. It felt like we had to do it then, you know?
And I think that also like put the pressure on it. And but
I can. It was cool. I feel like I also wasn't really taking in all my surroundings because I was so overwhelmed.
I know, like it was truly overwhelming. And again, I think it felt like we had to like look around as much as we could because we did, like if it would have been on Saturday, we could have kind of like relaxed and even stayed till 7.
Yeah.
But this just felt like, I don't know if I want to stay till 7 type thing and like really look around again. And
I know. So we ended up leaving. It was like around 4:30-ish.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Maybe a little after.
I definitely think it would be fun. Like I wouldn't do this the next time I go, but next time if it was to been my first time, do like 2 days.
Yeah.
And like spend the night during one of them or something.
Yeah.
That way you actually get to like enjoy it.
Yeah, like you don't feel pressure to. Yeah. The one complaint that we both had was that we just wish that the communication would have been a little bit better.
Yes, especially because it sounds like and I know it's like a huge deal to close something like that for an entire day, but to like seems like they knew about the problem pretty early.
Yeah, they knew that they didn't have
let
power.
people get to the gates.
Yeah, people were waiting outside.
Yeah, and they like were like, no, like I just don't love that.
I know, and I know that
like logistically, I'm sure they wanted to be open.
Yeah, and as a patron, like you do take the risk of like, okay, anything could happen, I guess, or it's kind of on me with a hotel or something. But there were people in the comments that were like, like I paid for a hotel to come down here and now I'm supposed to come another week. Like, what am I supposed to do? Pay an extra like $150 for a hotel? Like, it's just the money can rack up. And then I don't think we ended up spending all that much because all we did was get food. And then if we got the one taco each, we split the fry. Like, we didn't get a ton.
No.
So, but I could see how you easily could spend a lot of money.
Especially if you got some like merchandise.
Yeah.
Stuff.
We did go into the cute little shop that had the fun dresses and they weren't so expensive. I mean, what you would expect.
I know. I was like exactly what I was expecting. And we got to see the like princess crown.
Yeah, that was cute.
I know. I definitely I do want to go back. I don't know. Maybe next year, but I don't know if I'd like go every year.
Yeah, I don't think I would go
but
every year.
I think I want to go again to like actually enjoy it. Yeah. Now that I know what I'm expecting.
Right. And we decided that if we were to go again, if it's even the slightest bit rainy, probably just wear rain boots.
Literally, yes.
So that it's you're fully protected, and don't even worry about the theme unless it's like the Viking weekend or whatever, because it seemed like, which we didn't really worry about the theme all that much, but it just seems like people were kind of doing whatever they wanted, which is fun.
Right. And there's definitely like actual cosplaying. And
yeah, there was a lot that we didn't know because I think there were some that were maybe games or comics,
like
and
anime.
we don't know a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So
I would say it's fun to go. Like, I'd say I
liked it more than I like the fair.
Oh, for sure. I'd say go at least once. Like, it's cool to go and at least experience it once. If nothing else, I thought that the food that they had was way better than what you have at the fair.
For sure. Like, if we lived closer to something like that, I would probably do that.
Yeah.
Like
I wonder
every year
if they have like a food pass like they do.
Yeah. Like, can I just come in and eat?
Yeah, we just want some snacks.
But even so, like that's so weird. Like, what did I do with it? Even so, though, I mean, it wasn't terribly expensive to get in.
No, I didn't think it was either. What was it, 35, I think? Yeah, that's not bad.
Had it have been closer, I would definitely
do that. It was just the 3-hour drive that was a bit
we did
much.
Twice.
Yeah, we did 2 times.
That wasn't fun.
So it was like a total of 9 hours.
Which is like
insane.
I know. So I definitely would recommend like waiting maybe like 2 days before to get your tickets, because it doesn't seem like too many of the weekends.
Well, and I don't know how they really cap.
Yeah, they say they cap, but I mean, I didn't really look at the.
Well, when we left and looked in the parking lot, there were like hundreds of cars.
Yeah, so, and I know this was like a freak thing because they let us use the tickets the next day, but
I mean, it didn't feel like there were a crazy amount of people once you were in there. Yeah. Like, I didn't feel claustrophobic ever.
No.
So, yeah.
Anywho.
Overall, good experience, but there were a couple snags.
Issues. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about the substance? We are going to talk about Rebel Wilson's book, but we have some hot topics to discuss first.
Yes.
I went yesterday and saw The Substance because it's not going to be in theaters around us much longer, apparently,
Just
for
so
no
annoying.
reason. So I had to go to a 5:45 showing, which is so random. It was definitely unlike any movie I have seen.
I know.
And I actually did really enjoy it. There was one part that I like could not look at.
No, it was getting, okay, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, you're probably going to want to skip at least 15 minutes.
Yeah, because you have to just experience it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Don't listen to anything we're saying.
The parts where she kept going in the back and removing the fluid was starting to get to me. Like, the further it went in, I was like, this is normally, like, I don't know, I just feel like with gore and stuff, I know it's a movie, so it doesn't bother me, but in real life, gore and blood bother me. But man, that was starting to get to me a little bit.
The things looked and felt really real, and I think it was because of the sound and what you said.
Yeah, about how, like,
yes, and I really would advise if you haven't seen the movie, or hopefully you skipped forward here, but seeing it in theater is the way to see it for the first time at least.
Right, because it just the way the sounds, the way they have it like turned up, and there's just so much of it's like a sensory experience.
Yeah, it really does make it, and that enhances the experience overall.
I know.
There was like one part, and it was kind of towards the beginning, where it was just like loud sound, like music and noise. Actually, I think it was when she took the substance originally, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't listen to this. Like, it was just so loud. It was almost like just if you felt it all through your body.
Yes.
And then every little thing had a sound. Like when she injected herself for the first time, you hear the skin breaking. I mean, everything.
I know. I wondered what other people like, because I'm like, did my theater just turn it up really loud, or is that what it was supposed to? Because I haven't really heard many people talk about like the sound aspect of it. But man,
the part that got me was when Demi Moore, Elizabeth Sparkle, is like fully old at this point. Well, not fully. She's like half. And her knee, oh my god. And I'm like weird about knee stuff anyway. I mean, who likes to knee stuff? But she was like all arthritic, and her knee had locked up, and I had like, I literally turned away. I'm like, I can't watch this.
I know there were times where you were like, oh gosh, and then it was like, then you would be laughing because it was so intense.
I know. There were some parts in the movie where people, because there were like a good amount of like middle-aged people that came into the movie, which is always like a little surprising to me, and I don't know why, and I think that's just me being judgmental. I know, I always think
that too. I'm like, why are you in this movie? As if they weren't also young one time and enjoyed film.
Because I'm like, well, that's gonna be me,
right?
You know what I mean? So, but there were parts where people around me were kind of laughing at points that I didn't feel like were actually like uncomfortable or funny. And I'm just like, you don't get it. Like, I actually was kind of emotional towards the end. I know. Well, that's why I like clapped at the end, because when her like, there's just so much. Or the part too where she like had ran into that guy from high school or whatever, and he's like, we should go out, and then she's finally like, okay, I'm gonna go out, and then she just like can't leave because she just feels so ugly, and she's like hurting herself. And it's like, you know, for women especially, like where you're just like, I can't go do this thing because I'm so hideous. And the way she kept trying. And then when she was like at the end and he's like texting her and she just is like sitting there on the bed. Like, I know.
I thought too, the other part where the monster comes out and like just the desperation from the monster. It was like, I'm going anyway.
I know. I literally like when at the very end when the monster came out on the stage, like I was like kind of welling up a little bit.
I know,
I'm
because it was like, and it was like a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Like she's like, no, I'm
gonna
do it.
But it just like this is where, and I don't want to sound like such a jerk and be like, nobody gets it. But it just felt like, especially for some of the women that were in there, and they were like laughing like at the monster. And I'm just like, you don't understand this metaphor. I'm sorry. Like, how do you not relate to this?
Right. It's like she did all that and she still was like, I have to get there. Like, I have to get on that stage.
And just the pressure to feel, to look beautiful and to be something. And just like how we've talked about with other, like with, you know, Pearl and X and stuff, the using the age of the characters and how we kind of fear aging. I think especially as women, I mean, if this movie taught me anything, it's that like I am terrified of aging. But like it was so just emotional because for so many celebrities, I think they do get caught in that trap.
Right.
Of like, I have to do more and more to stay youthful and to stay relevant.
I know. And even like this movie, just the injection part with like the Ozempic stuff that's going on right now. It's like, it's like, we're not far off.
I know, literally.
This situation. And it's like, how far will we go?
Well, even I kept thinking, so many celebrities that are getting older, particularly the women, who they get work done and then they get a little bit more done, they get a little bit more, and we're like, oh, you look great, you look great, you look great.
Right.
And then it starts to kind of go to the other side of it where then we're like, oh, they need to stop. What are they doing? They look ridiculous. Or they get some work done that wasn't very successful, and then we're like, wow, they were botched.
They really fricked themselves
like,
up.
What do we want from women? You know, it's just so that's what I was feeling toward the end. I'm like, she literally was giving everything and was trying so hard to chase that dream, and just wanted so bad to have it.
I know. And then when she's like on the back of the monster, you know, and then it gets to the end and the creature's like running. I don't even know what to call it. The monster, I guess. I wonder. Well, anyway. And then when she like breaks apart and she like crawls to her star and she's just like,
I'm so happy. I know.
You got there, Elizabeth.
I know. I thought that the obviously the ending part where like it's like horrible and it's gory, with the blood everywhere. I mean, that I did like snicker at that part because it was so absurd.
I know, like it was like,
and it was just, I mean, you had to laugh. But when the monster, like originally, like when we first saw it, I mean, that's when people were like kind of laughing, and I'm like, you just don't understand.
And when and that little monster's like getting ready in the mirror and like
trying to just be pretty. I know. And then I thought too, when the monster first arrives back at the studio and then kind of has that like fantasy montage of walking down the hallway, I also thought maybe this is just like me getting like deep into it, but in the industry, I feel like people can look like not good because of work that they've gotten done, but the people around them will be like, you look amazing. It's so great that you're doing it. You know, like they'll gas them up.
Right. Just to watch them get like torn apart.
I know.
So it was almost like when she first was coming in and I didn't realize it was a fantasy.
Me either.
Then I'm like, this makes sense. Because they're like, you're here. We've been waiting for you.
That's exactly what I thought too.
I know. Like we put them up, make them feel important just to like laugh at them.
And to just literally rip the rug out from underneath. But I thought that it was some amazing acting from Demi Moore. I've never ever would have expected her to do anything like this.
That's why, and it was just so meta. Like
I know. And so when I was on the way home, I was listening to this YouTube video interview of the two of them and then the director at TIFF, and they did a interview, obviously, and they were talking about the film and stuff, and the interviewer was asking some pretty good questions, and then said something about like, you know, what does it mean to you and whatnot. And I almost wanted Demi Moore to be like, well, I struggled with this.
Right.
Like I personally like got too
my
much filler in my face.
Right. Or even just like I got old and I wasn't getting those hot roles that I used to get.
And she kind of said like a little bit of her just saying like, you know, I can relate to this. I think that we've all been through experiences like that. And I have insecurities with my body and whatever, which I'm like, okay, I know that you do, but you still look unbelievable. And then I was glad that they mentioned it in this interview too about the prosthetics, because I could like tell that they were like Demi's, some of her body was prosthetics, just because I know that's not what Demi Moore looks like. But, and even someone like Maragret too, like her breasts were prosthetics. And I'm like, yeah, I could tell, but they still looked like realistic too.
Right. Like I liked how they did that and went that way, because it did make it feel like I'm actually looking at that character, and it kept me in that it was like that's what was happening to her. And I also thought just like Demi Moore being so like physical in this role and everything was really awesome.
Yeah, and Maragret too.
I know. And then also like Dennis Quaid's character.
He did great. Oh, you know what they said? That it was supposed to be Ray Liotta. I didn't know that.
I know. I heard that too, just I feel like today. But yeah, and then him doing it and him being so gross and having the audacity,
I know,
to like speak to Demi Moore. And then when Margaret Qually or Sue was like, I just have like a little thing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to like have every other week off. And he's like, he like gets up and then he's like, we'll do anything for you.
You are perfect.
It's like, and that's so true. It's
I know.
Like, you know, how many times have like the less attractive or the younger girl get to just like take over and gets all these special treatment?
Yeah,
and
I know.
I loved that.
They in that interview they said like he really committed, and he really did. Like this was great. Totally different from anything he had done too.
I know, and it's like you hated him, but he was funny, and you're like, ugh. It was just like the perfect embodiment of that like that industry
Hollywood
type.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved that. Like I just loved how like there was like metaphor and other things. Like I can't wait to watch it again to pick up on more things. But just like how blunt it's like, nope, they're like caricatures, but not at the same time. And I just loved that part of it.
Well, it is, and the director is French, so I feel like that definitely had like I don't know, just the way sometimes French films push boundaries, and then the French kind of have a little bit different of outlook on things. And also the director, she said, you know, I don't want to put another pressure on women by saying you need to have self-confidence and self-love, because it's not always easy to have that. So the message of this movie isn't like love yourself. It's more of just, I think, kind of like a narrative.
Yeah, it's like this is what it is, and there's no like full happy ending to it, or like she doesn't accept herself in the end, like she like does in the way that she changed, that she transformed into the monster. But it's like there was no solution. Like she got completely wrapped up in trying to be better, and
there was no going back.
No, it was like you pushed it too far. I also wondered about did you think that they shared a consciousness?
Well, because they said that they're one,
right? But then she'd almost come back and like, I know, because I kept going back and forth. I'm like, so do they have memories of the night before? And it kind of seemed like they didn't. But then I also kind of thought maybe it was almost like if you got high and you didn't really remember
Yeah,
it, but it was
right.
still all you, and there's
Yeah.
like bits and pieces, and I kind of wondered if it was like a little bit like that. But then it was
Well, because Elizabeth was jealous of
Yes.
Sue.
yes.
So I feel like it was like
And
that.
then they
Because
were
if
like
she would have been able to remember and feel what it was like to be Sue, then she probably wouldn't have, said, no, stop,
Right. Right. But then she also was like, no, I need you.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, but then when Sue was like, realized that Demi Moore or Elizabeth was trying to kill her, she got mad.
Yeah.
But then it was also like that battle in oneself of like,
Yeah.
I'm willing to go this far and then I'm not. And I also loved that like the younger version was so selfish and
I
like
know,
self-absorbed and everything, and I thought that was just such a cool element. And then when she keeps like taking the stabilizer
Mhm.
from the back and just like and then I love too how it was like everything's too good to be true, like here,
Yeah.
just do this.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, oh wait, my
Like-
other person took an extra day and now I'm
I
starting to
know.
decay.
It's like, oh, wait, no, tomorrow you can do Vogue. Tomorrow you're getting this opportunity. It's like the
Mhm.
opportunities kept coming and she couldn't say no.
I
She
know.
couldn't go back to being Elizabeth.
I know. And like I went because like in the beginning, for those of you who don't care about spoilers, well, it's like you're like birthed.
Yeah, hopefully you don't.
You birthed out the back.
That was crazy.
It was, and I thought at first they were gonna keep birthing
Me
from
too.
each other.
I
and
thought
was
they were
like,
gonna go back in.
I know. And then I wondered too. So then there's like that, but then I wondered when Sue tries to like do it again. I'm like, is a baby gonna come out the back? And then the baby will never be able to like be the thing. But when it like fully mutated, I was like,
oh my God. I know. I kind of thought
I wasn't sure where they were
gonna
going.
go wrong,
Yeah,
but
you're
I
like,
didn't know
"How's
what it
this
was
gonna
gonna
go?"
be.
I know. I'm like a 12-year-old, a baby will never be able to
more
like transfer.
Yeah.
But
I thought that the fight scene between the two of them was really good. Like
It
that was
was.
obviously hard to watch because it was so graphic.
brutal. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a brutal
But
fight.
like both of them were so committed. Like
I
I
know.
almost like can't even believe that they were that committed.
I know, especially like Demi Moore, because I've just never seen her like
in a role like
just
that.
totally giving it all. And
Yeah.
like Margaret Qually, I guess I could see it a little more because I feel like she's gonna keep going a little on these unhinged
But we've never
roles.
seen her
like
be
like
physical.
evil. Yeah.
I mean, she was like a freaking nature.
She was a menace.
She had
was
super strength and
absolute
everything.
menace.
She was not giving
I know,
it up.
and that was what was fun about like was the fight necessarily realistic, but it was so camp and like over the top with that stuff, and I just loved those parts of the movies where it just like freaking went balls to the wall.
Yeah, it was just unlike anything I've ever seen. But I did really like it, and I thought that the message behind it was just really
awesome.
strong.
I know, and like I said, it could not even be more relevant than it is now. When we're literally injecting ourselves to make ourselves skinny right now.
And I think that they said it took them like 5 years to get this made. But I think it couldn't have come out at a better time. Like this is the perfect time.
Literally.
And how crazy too, because 5 years ago, that would have been pre-COVID. Like imagine, I just feel like if this would have come out during like COVID times, it would have hit so different.
It really would have, yeah.
And I don't think it would have really hit as hard as it is now. Because, I mean, not to go here, but it almost would have been maybe like injectable fears.
Right.
Because of everything and a new vaccine and all that stuff.
Like it wouldn't have been as believable like in the moment, but now because it's totally
right. I mean, it completely, and it's so relevant with like us talking all the time about the celebrities that are getting little bits and pieces done here, but they're not being transparent about it.
Right, and it's almost like we're kind of almost to the point where even though a ton of people are still on the Ozempic, we're starting to get a little bit of pushback. And I think this is like this movie shows like something's too good to be true.
Right.
It might
It probably
be.
is. So, okay, the $1 million question. If you were offered the substance, would you take it? And I don't think we can think of it as like now. We'd have to think of it when we're like 55.
Definitely not. I mean, I mean, but again, it's kind of like that thing where if it's too good to be true, it probably is. But also it's like the thing she tried to stop the most, which was like aging, ended up accelerating the aging to the point where she like could probably dies. Yeah, it's like, at that point she turned into a full like other thing. So it's like as much as we try to fight that, we can't. So I guess I would hope I would say no. But if I was famous, maybe.
You would. And if the cards or if the stars are aligning, you know, like when it was for Elizabeth Sparkle, like she was aging out of her show. She was being told that she's has been basically getting fired, feeling the age every day, like on her birthday, hating it, which is totally gonna be me when I'm like 50 something. But yeah, I think if you're in that point of your life, you probably would be like, I'll do anything if I could get it back. And you don't, it's not like there were a full instruction manual with this thing. I mean, it was the most vague like, it could ever be. Yeah. So, you know, and you really didn't have control over your other self.
I know. They were freaking, like I said, she was a menace.
Because if it literally was like, it's me, but better.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, because it almost felt like she wasn't actually getting to experience
I know.
that young thing. And I think that was like the part that was like a hair unclear on the movie. But I guess if I think of it in the way like I said earlier about like maybe you're like in this drugged like state. So it's like you're not really getting that experience either. You just like know it's you, but they also think it's Sue. It's like a totally different person. It looks like you, but not you.
Fully you.
Yeah, like as your actual younger self.
Yeah. I also thought that Margaret Qually, when she did the exercise, like that was totally unlike her too.
It was, and that part,
with
that
the
other
chicken.
part, okay, right before that, when they are like, hold on.
Oh my God.
Zoom in.
That was so
I literally,
good,
even though she looks so perfect, I was like, you would just die.
You would freak
like,
out.
Like, you would
the
die.
whole crew
like,
stopped.
Like,
wait, let's put that on the big screen. Let's
slow it down.
When they said, take this frame by frame, I was dying.
I know. I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a nightmare. And again, even though we know she looks perfect, that's a freaking nightmare. Yeah, and then when she pulled that chicken
was hard to watch too.
Yeah,
because I didn't know what it was, and again, you didn't know that was a dream.
No,
so you're like, what the heck is going on? Yeah, and then she pulls the chicken wing because Elizabeth is kind of trying to sabotage her by just eating horribly. And that was funny too when Elizabeth decides to use that French cookbook that she was given and cook her way through the alphabet. Yeah,
I know.
And then when she transforms back into Sue, Sue's like, control yourself, because the apartment is like
disgusting,
like totally unhinged. She had newspapered the windows. There was food everywhere.
It was just iconic. But what was I gonna say about
I think
even the part, sorry,
no, go ahead.
The part too where they're like zooming in on the perfect body and stuff, how even though she looked that way, she was still insecure.
Yeah,
like that
she's
insecurity.
Like, give me my rope.
Yeah, was still there. Even though she's transformed to this younger, better version.
Which is totally relatable.
True, I know. I'm like, that was such an awesome touch. Like they didn't give you a lot of that character, like feeling insecure, but just that. And I mean, that was just so good.
But this is where, and I don't want to be like that person, but when we're talking about like this movie versus something like Poor Things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, or what was the other one? No, that was, or Kinds of Kindness. Like, you can tell that this was written and directed by a woman.
Yes.
Because, and maybe that's just, you know, because you said you kind of had to explain some things to your husband. Right. It's like, to me, I enjoyed this so much more because it was from a woman's perspective. And I'm like, yes, like, you get it, you know?
Right. And like, even the parts where it is like zooming in so much on Sue's body, like her younger body, and like just this over the top dance sequences and stuff. And it's like you're just staring at her in like the male gaze in that way, but it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you like stare. Like, that's the point. Like, it's not trying to dance
sexual.
Around.
Right. Like I felt like with Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness, there were so many things, like sexual things, that were just superfluous. Like, they weren't needed. Like, right. And in this, okay, yeah, we saw her whole body, right, but it never felt like in a sexual, like, raunchy way. Right. Like it wasn't supposed to get you aroused.
Right. Like like there's nudity in it, but it's not sexual.
Yeah, which I know is kind of weird to say, but but
you'll see.
Yeah, and even with the part where Sue is, you know, going to sleep with this like hot guy that she met at the club or whatever, it's like, that still what, and he's kind of like she's not naked or anything, but he's like touching on her body, right? And that still wasn't even done in a way that was just raunchy. It was done in a way that was just like, her body is perfect to a man, right? And we're showcasing that, right? You know, like,
right, like, it's supposed to make you feel a certain way. Like,
but it's not supposed to like turn you on. Right. It's supposed to like almost,
it's in your face almost too much. Yeah. But like, that's the point.
Because that was throughout the whole movie, the like super zoom shots, like everything with Dennis Quaid, and like those shots when it's super zoomed in like that and right in your face, it makes you feel different than if you're kind of seeing it from, you know, the whole room's view. And you didn't even see, like, there wasn't any sex in the movie. It was just like implied.
Right. And like, even that scene, it's like it starts to get like sabotaged, where she's like the bleeding.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I think there definitely should be some nominations here.
I know. I really,
if nothing else, for acting.
I know. I was gonna say, if the whole movie gets snubbed, I just hope that this doesn't get snubbed because it's horror.
Yeah.
Because that was like, I mean, that's like the best acting I think we've seen all year.
I think so
story.
Too.
I mean,
it really, and just even, I wouldn't even say it's, again, like with everything with like the Pearl trilogy or the X, what do they call it, the X trilogy, it doesn't fully fall into the horror category for me, but it does make you feel kind of uneasy, and there definitely are some parts where it's gory or whatever, but
like it's body horror.
Yeah.
And so, for some people, that is the scariest thing, but it's not like a paranormal movie. It's almost like a sci-fi situation.
It's almost just like hyper realistic kind of.
Like, I feel like it's just like a very artistic movie, but it's not just like a drama that you would normally see at the Oscars. So I hope they still will.
I know. But I mean, Poor Things had nominations, so like, you know, we'll see.
Right. I know. I just feel like when you get that like horror label, regardless if we feel like it's a true horror, it's like
they just don't even look at it.
Skirt on it, which
but you can't. Fair. I mean, come on, Demi Moore. I don't even know what she's been doing for the past few years, but to come out with this,
I know,
like, is
clap,
just
clap.
like give her
Bravo.
flowers,
Now
as
that-
the kids say.
Now that I would be standing for a
For sure. Yeah. Imagine if you saw that at a film festival. I would definitely do an ovation for that one. And it would be deserved.
It would, but just took it out. And there's just so many things to say. Like, I want to see it again and take it all in again. Like,
well, we're going to have to wait for streaming now because apparently it is being ripped from the theater. And I don't know, like you said, is it because of the type of movie that it
or
is that
it
they
just
limited
the way it's gonna be? Because sometimes with that stuff, like once a few people see it and it's doing well, they'll like make it bigger. But I am kind of surprised that they let it even go into theaters at all.
I
just
am
because
too.
of like the content.
I thought it would
letting
be
it
limited.
be mainstream.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like, because it seemed like after that first weekend and when you were trying to find times, they were already like pulling them all. So
I know.
I'm like, was it because of reactions to the content?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the people that were in the theater with me, I mean, I don't know if they fully like enjoyed it or not. It didn't sound like they didn't enjoy it, but they were just kind of like, what the heck kind of a movie is that? And I'm just like, well, you didn't get it.
I know.
You didn't understand. And again, I guess I didn't look anything up either, except for that one trailer I saw, and you were really tight-lipped about it, and I'm glad that you were.
Yeah, it's something you just have to experience.
Yeah, so I guess I can't say that other people, they maybe didn't have anybody who went to see it and like didn't see the trailer, and maybe they're just like, oh, Demi Moore's new movie. I don't know.
I know. I mean, I went in it pretty blind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting a lot of that intensity.
I didn't know what to expect.
I know it was like,
all.
it just like from scene to scene to scene. Like you're like, where are we going from here? And you're like,
know.
oh, like it was like a freaking crazy, but it was so good.
Yeah, it was good. It was, I mean, like we said with, again, to say like Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness, like this was a movie I've never seen anything like before, but I actually enjoyed it.
Yes.
Whereas those other films, I had some struggles with them, but with this one, there was a real story. It was relatable, even though it was very sensationalized and obviously fictitious. It still had that string of reality that kept
like
you
it's
engaged.
not, like I said, it's like it's not far off of what could literally be happening.
So yeah, I would.
Bravo.
I would definitely say to see that, because
I know if you want a wild ride.
Yeah, it was just
do it.
Unreal. It was unreal.
I know.
And I wonder, because I told Hannah when we were on the way, when we had 9 hours to talk to each other over the weekend for the Ren Festival, that I watched that Wolves movie with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and then I just heard that they made $35 million each. Thinking about a movie like this, I wonder how much Demi and Margaret Qually made.
Certainly not as much as those men.
I mean, because obviously the budget wasn't there for a movie like this, but it's just like, hello, like not to say that George and Brad didn't.
Yeah, it's like they have long-standing careers. Yeah, and they deserve to be paid.
They did fine. They did exactly what they needed to do in this movie. But God, when you see just how these two women fully committed,
I know, and just went freaking all for it. Yeah. Everything was believable. And I'm sure, they didn't get paid the way they should have.
And maybe they were fine with it because they believed in the script project and stuff.
Right.
But it's just like and again, it's from like, we're comparing Apple to, whoever produced this.
Right.
But yeah. And I mean, this is another one where it's just like, how did this get pitched and accepted? That's
I know, and then get into theaters is crazy.
I know.
Loves it.
Anyway, just
love an unhinged female.
Yeah, love the film. It was really, really well done. So Wonderful job, ladies.
I know. I love it. If you watched it, let us know what you think.
Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
So
Only if you
good.
enjoyed it and understood it.
I know.
If you were poo-pooing it, I don't want to hear it. Sorry.
I know. And there's just like from some of my YouTubers that love horror and like films and stuff, they all love this too. So, you know.
Yeah. If you're in, you're in. You know, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you just don't. Oh, you found it. Good.
I found my hair oil that I've been looking for like 3 days. So,
do you want to do just a quick recap of OC and then go into our book club? Because didn't you just watch it?
I did. But I did want to talk about Dave Grohl's book.
Oh, yeah.
Quick.
Did you finish it?
I did finish it. It was good, but very unpersonal. You hear about his kids, but you don't hear about how he met his wife. And then apparently he was married before, and he like barely mentions that. But if you just want to hear stories about music, then this is it.
So what did he say? The sobriety thing. Like,
yeah,
did he ever bring that up?
Well, he drinks.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem to be, because I had told Ailish when we were driving that I'm like, are we getting a book from a rock star with no addiction issue? And like, yeah, we kind of did. I mean, he definitely drinks and parties and stuff and like smokes weed. But no, he like, if we're believing him and stuff, he just doesn't do drugs. He said he was scared of like, he would see like people do heroin and he would be more like scared of it, which I could totally believe because I probably lean on that.
Yeah, I'd be scared too. Yeah. Well, you don't just casually do heroin.
But anyway, I will say though that he did talk about Kurt Cobain's like, and obviously I didn't expect him to like sensationalize the situation, especially because the person is passed away, but he really doesn't, like, I don't know. I think I wish he would have explored a little bit what it was like to be like relying on someone so heavily and them to be like kind of sucked into this, like, you know, problems with addiction. Mm-hmm. And also, you know, like Kurt Cobain was like really struggling with fame and stuff and like success. And the only thing I just wish he would have explored that a little bit, like what kind of dynamic that would be when you're like relying on someone so heavily for your career and they're like a little bit, I don't even know what the word is, kind of like, I don't want to say unstable, but you know, like, because the only thing he really says is, you know, like they were like getting really overwhelmed because they had them playing in these small venues, but they were like getting really big.
Yeah.
And how like people were kind of like basically on the stage, just like, and he's like, I could just tell Kurt was like going to get upset and he was going to like start smashing things. Well, that's like what he would do.
Yeah. And like Nirvana was really big, but it was really led by Kurt Cobain.
Right.
Like people wanted him.
Because he's like this tortured soul. Okay, that's a good word for it. He was like this tortured soul. And then, of course, he does end up like smashing everything. And then they're like, you know, everyone thought it was part of the act. Yeah. He's like, no. Like,
this is real. Upset. Yeah.
And then he talked about, you know, like they would like live together, obviously. And it was like him and Kurt a lot just together. And I don't know. But I do think he was just trying to be respectful and like not ruin anybody's like opinion on Kurt and like, which I think was nice, but I just would have liked a little bit more about that. But he does talk really respectfully about the death and like how it was, because it was like the first time he's like, they called him and they're like, he's gone, and he's like, oh my God, you know, like everything. And then they called him back. Nope, he's still alive. And then it was just like, I think a couple weeks later he actually died. So he's like, that was like I wish he would have explored that a little bit more. And then he was also like, you know, he's like, I don't want to sound stupid or whatever, but we lived together. I'm like, how did I not know what he was doing?
Well, is there more to this story, Dave?
I know. So I don't know. I wish he would have did a little bit more of that. But he
Did
had
he
a ton
talk
of like
about-
celebrity stories, which
did
I
he
loved.
say anything about Courtney Love?
No, not a single word.
I wonder if that's
scared of her. I think
Yeah.
everybody. I know, and I'm like, and even when he talked about his death, he didn't say suicide, but he said there was a suicide note.
allegedly.
But he does not. Yeah, he's like, he does not. Which again, I get. Like, you don't want to like spark. So we don't know what he thinks happened to Kurt Cobain based on this book.
But does it seem like he knows more or has different opinions?
Not from the book, but I'm sure. I mean, I would think. But yeah, he didn't say where. He mentioned Kurt Cobain's daughter. He's like, said something like he would play with his daughter like every time before he would go on stage. Like he was so sweet to her, but he did not say a single word about Courtney Love.
Oh my God.
But, and that's like a thing too. Like, can you imagine how difficult she was this whole time?
I can't
before
imagine.
and after the death, and he didn't say anything about her like reading the note or anything, like that whole thing.
So he was very like PC.
Yes, very. And he just was kind of like talked about, like meeting all these different musicians and like different shows they got to play. And
But
he
then
talks about the Foo Fighters. But it's like, what's not to be like bratty, but like, what's the point of this book then?
I know,
If it's
that's what I
all
was
good
gonna-
stories, it's like those
right.
can be in there, but like, how can you not get, I mean, and then he doesn't talk about hooking up with women pretty much at all. But it's
which
like,
we know is obviously not real. He
Right.
does.
so I'm like,
But that's
we
what
didn't get
just-
any of that like it wasn't Anthony Kiedis's book.
But it just like kind of almost makes you like discredit things that he's
Right.
saying because now that we know he just fathered a child outside of his marriage, like I'm sure that's not the first time there was an affair like
Right.
that. And then for this book to be like, well, I'm just a dad and I'm a rocker and everything with Nirvana was like pretty much great. It's like, okay. But like
But
that
where's
isn't the
I know, it's
case.
like I'm in like Keats. I mean, based on the book and like what it seems like he's very well liked in the industry, and they ask him to do all this stuff, and he did a lot of stuff at the White House and stuff. So I'm like, maybe he really is out here like putting on this like I'm just a nice guy to everybody, and I'm like, which is probably like the only rock star ever
to do
like
that. But then you're right. Like, what's the point of writing this kind of book?
Right,
Because most of the time I shouldn't say that. When they're good, people write their memoirs.
Right.
And it's like, I'm spilling it. Like, these are
Here's
the
tea.
yeah. And like, especially if you're a rocker, like imagine and I don't know if any of like the Rolling Stones or anything, like if they wrote books, I don't know if they did, but that book, if they came out, if like Mick Jagger came out and said,
Well, I think there is like a book, like a book with like collections of stories from people, but I don't know exactly what it is. But like Tommy Lee has a book, Travis Barker has a book.
But if they came out and were like, yeah, I met my wife, got married, live a pretty quiet life. Tour is pretty normal. We love playing music. Here's some celebrity run-ins we've had. You'd be like, what? Like, that's not real.
I listened to the Celebrity Memoir Book Club episode on it, and Claire was kind of like, this was a fine book, but like we would not accept this book from a woman. Like, she could not just get up here and be like, everything was great. I'm a really good mom and everything's perfect and stuff. So I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, it was a good book.
Because of the like little bits of insight that you got.
Right. And which was fun. Like, I liked the celebrity name dropping and like the good experiences with these celebrities and stuff. But
that there's some negative ones.
Juice. Yeah, because even there's like, he was in this band like in the beginning and they're called Scream or whatever. And he ends up like leaving them and he just kind of like, yeah, I left them. Yeah, I bet that didn't go over very well.
Right.
Like, but I don't know. It just was kind of like, or like even get into like, you're in this huge band. You guys couldn't get any bigger. And then the lead singer is dead.
Dies, yeah.
And like,
Talk
I just
about
feel
what
like
that
was
did to you.
Yeah, it's like, did you think your career was going to be over?
Yeah.
But he just stayed super optimistic and got to keep working. So maybe in that way, he was able to do that because he was well liked and like just kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like everything kept falling into his lap and like.
But it's just, you don't know if that's the reality.
Right. Like,
you know?
Did you make people mad?
Yeah.
What did you and Kurt fight? Did you and the band fight? Like, did you? I don't know. It just.
And I like
fine.
with some other books, I mean, it's well with Rebel Wilson's, like for some of the negative experiences that she had in the industry, she'll tell us the story, but she won't tell us who the person is. Like, you don't always have to completely throw people under the bus.
Right. And I think he was very afraid to do that. But I think it's like, if you're telling me you're having like a bad experience with like in your band and you guys are rock stars, like I'm going to believe that. It's not going to change my opinion on the person you're talking about. You almost
kind of expect it.
Right. And like that's going to happen when you're like the pressures of fame and like writing music together.
Being together so much.
Right. So it's kind of like, I don't know, but I mean, it is, but then we also critique them like for speaking ill about the dead too.
Right,
so
I know.
Like
so it's a double-edged sword. It's just like, though, I mean, and I know that it's a pipe dream, but you just want more information.
I know.
Like
I just
somebody
want that
knows
juice.
something more. I mean, we have to know. Like, tell us.
I know.
Was it really a suicide?
I know. Like, do you have any? I mean, he was very, and who knows? Maybe he was like silenced on it too
maybe,
with that situation. So that could be too. But I don't know. But it still seems like because I was just like, when I was YouTubing it, it was him and the other guy from Nirvana. So it seems like they're still like
just friendly
close,
enough.
Yeah, enough.
The thing that is a little bit frustrating though, with just thinking about like the Kurt thing, like when you have somebody who's that close to you, whether it be like a friend, a colleague, both, whatever, like there's no way that you're not deeply affected by their death, especially when it's such a tragic way, as it was with Kurt Cobain. So it's a little bit frustrating that he didn't really talk about that.
Well, he he did in the very like, this was really like he does say like this was super devastating and like shocking and like, and then later on he talks too about like, because then he lost another like his childhood best friend, so he like talks about them again towards the end. Like he's like, well, these are the people that are missing, and I do think about them a lot. Like I just wanted more about that. But then he said like they only worked together, which is still a long time, but 3 years, and it was probably a huge whirlwind and stuff. But I just still feel like you're living with this person. I don't know. I just would have liked a little bit like, how did this change?
Yeah, just
your
how
career?
did it affect you?
Right. Other than like you miss them a lot,
Yeah.
and they should be here too type thing.
Because like, I mean, I think I said it on the podcast before, but like I had like an experience with suicide that was like closer to me, and like it rocked me, and I barely knew the person that well.
Right.
So I can't imagine living with somebody,
like your coworker,
touring with them. Yeah. And then having that happen. And yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, 3 years isn't that long, but at that time of their lives, it was, you know?
Right. And it's like you're young.
Yeah. Like
and everything maybe got ripped out from under you too.
Yeah.
Is kind of like
there's no way that didn't affect you mentally.
Right.
So when maybe he didn't want to share it, but then at the same time, why are you writing a book then?
Right. About your musical career.
Yeah.
When that is part of it. But
so you wish you would have read this before the...
I don't know. I mean, because I guess I probably would have walked away more like, oh, just a great guy. Great dad.
Yeah.
Great guy. He wasn't hooking up with all these underage girls.
And then the facade was shattered. Yeah.
But, I don't know when Celebrity Memoir Book Club did this one, but they did say in the blind eye, because they were also like, "What? Where's the wife? Like,
Yeah,
how did you
that's
meet her?"
odd.
I know, they're like, "How did you meet her?" But then they said that in the blind items that he's cheating on her left and right, which I had never heard anything, but I wouldn't have.
No, I don't follow.
So
the
I
Foo
guess
Fighters.
like it was out there before this.
Yeah, it's really weird to write a book like that and not include anything about your wife, but then include your children.
Well, he says she exists basically, but we don't get how they met, at what point they met, and like, because you know how like these memoirs, they'll be like, and then my daughter was now 2 years old, and we were it's like it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it was like that. So it's like it didn't even have to be like in a chronological timeline.
It's just so different from like, you know, with like Josh Peck's book, Matthew McConaughey's book. Like we got so much about their journey and then how they found their spouses and then whatever. But I don't know. I mean, he's probably not going to write another book for a while. So
it's definitely just about the music. So I think I would have, I think I would have rated it higher. Well, I don't know if I would have. On Goodreads, I think it had like a 4.4 or something rating.
But that probably is just because he is a very well liked.
Right. And like the book made him very likable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But me, I like the juice.
And maybe if you were a full on Foo Fighters fan or a Dave Grohl fan, you might feel differently.
I know. And I mean, yeah, he had an awesome career. He got to do all kinds of cool stuff.
You can't deny he's talented and has had an amazing career, but I don't know. Did you have any other timely topics?
No.
Okay. What do you want to do? Do you want to talk OC or just wait till next week? I don't care.
Probably next week.
Okay, that's fine. I thought this episode was better than last week, but we can easily wait till next week to discuss. I thought there was one thing. Oh, just the one thing that happened with just OC related was that Tamra kind of stepped in it this week with the drama with like Ryan. And I guess I didn't watch What Happens Live, but she continued to kind of bash him. And then Ryan was like, I'm going to sue you. And then Tamra had to go on Instagram and post a video. And she was like, oh, Eddie and I are just out for dinner. I wanted to say I misspoke on What Happens Live. And I don't know this about Ryan. And then she put an apology on her story. And I'm just like, I've never known Tamra to even do that before.
I know. Well, gosh, it's just so annoying when everyone just sues each other all the dang time. But it's like, shut your mouth or I'm going to sue you. I kind of see that too.
Right. Like I'm sending the cease and desist. And I did hear, I can't remember what I was listening to, and they were like, hasn't Tamra been here before? Like with the Jim Bellino thing? Why would she be doing this again? Well, it's because Tamra doesn't learn from her mistakes.
No.
We know that.
She just can't help herself.
No, she literally can't.
Incarnate.
She literally can't. And this episode that we'll talk about next week, it was so clear that she couldn't help herself. And even Eddie was like, I want to end it. Like, this is horrible. Which was kind of funny to watch.
Hi, welcome to We Wine Whenever. I'm Wendy.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Lori.
Join three middle-aged, middle-class Jersey Shore housewives as we spill the wine and the tea on everything from Bravo's hottest shows to life's everyday drama and entertainment news. I'm the redhead. I'll bring the spice.
I'm the brunette. I'll bring the humor.
I'm the blonde. I'll bring the fun.
It's unfiltered, it's hilarious, and it's always real talk from your favorite trio. Whether it's relationships, parenting, or pop culture, We Wine Whenever has you covered.
We drink wine whenever, and we hope you do too. Tune in for Cocktail Hour with the crew at We Wine Whenever, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
We are doing our book club again for the month of September. And if you all remember, we listened to Rebel Wilson's book, Rebel Rising. What did you think about this book overall?
I liked it. I'm not like a huge
Rebel Wilson fan.
Yeah.
Me either.
Yeah, it's like I don't dislike her, but I don't
I'm not obsessed
follow
with her.
Yeah. But I do have one like overall critique for the book.
Yes.
I don't know if I should talk about that now or
Oh,
not.
do you want to wait until we get there?
I don't know.
Whatever you feel.
Because it's kind of like throughout the book. Well, I guess like for me, when she's talking about like her fertility stuff and like having kids, I thought she kind of had like a really like negative outlook, or not outlook, but I don't think this was a very encouraging book for people in that situation.
Yeah.
As far as like, she's like, oh, the doctor told me I'm too old and this and that. And it's like, which like, I get that that is the narrative, but also we have to take a step back and be like, well, this is still like an industry, like a medical industry. And of course they're going to tell you that you're old and all your eggs are sucking and stuff and trying to get you to do this kind of stuff. And I just kind of felt like she was, and it wasn't her fault because that's what she's told. But it's still, I don't think it was like an encouraging book for that. Like it kind of just had like a really negative, like, because for me, obviously I already have 2 kids, but I would maybe like to have a third. And this book is kind of like, well, you better get on it because you're not going to be able to have another one. And I just don't think that's a fair thing to like put out there because that's not everyone's experience.
See, that's interesting that you say that because I felt the opposite. I actually thought that it was really real and encouraging because like I've even had a coworker make a comment that like, you know, about motherhood and being like, well, you know, if somebody in their 30s wanted kids, they would have them by now. And so I think that that is the narrative that's there and it is real, but like her sharing that and being like, this was my experience and I was faced with this fear, but it ended up working for me, which I know isn't necessarily, and I think that she knows too, isn't necessarily the experience a lot of people would have because they don't have the funds to do like IVF or have a surrogate and do all those things.
Which I think is just like a really tricky, like I like that she was honest about it and that, you know, she is going to the doctor and they're like, especially like in the beginning, they're like, you need to get a lot healthier for this. So I liked that part of it, but it is hard to when celebrities, because they do have so much more access to this stuff. And it's like, this is her true story. So of course she's going to tell us that. But it's also like, oh, well, that must be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just felt from, like, I was kind of emotional during this book because, like, I think that, like, her reality is, like, a pretty real like reality for me, though, too, because, like, I'm 31. I don't have any prospects. I don't have children, and I want that. But, like her, she's like, that's not going to happen for me. And I have to like come to terms with that.
Right.
And then like, if I went to the doctor when I was like 35, they would probably tell me the exact same thing. And that would be like soul crushing for me. But like, it would just be the experience that I would have. And that's really sad that would be the experience. But like, I think that was the reality. And I liked how she was so honest about that. And even with like the weight thing, I was like, damn, like she was really getting real here. And for me, I mean, we're jumping totally ahead to the end of the book, but for me, I thought that how her story kind of ended up kind of turning around, it was kind of encouraging, and how she was like, I did find love and things did end up falling into place, which I know is not maybe real for everybody. And a lot of those things happen because of the person that she is as a celebrity. But it still, for me, was more of an encouraging tone than a defeating tone. So I think I kind of like when we have differing opinions on stuff, because people do have differing opinions, and it's interesting to read the same book and feel different ways. So the book starts with her going in for that consultation, and then really it leans into her saying, like, I'm the fat funny girl, but I leaned into that.
Right, like the doctor's like, well, you're gonna have to lose weight or like get healthy, and then she's like, but that's who I am.
Yeah,
is the big girl. And
that was pretty much the tone of the whole book, where she talked about weight like throughout the whole thing. And then it wasn't until later that she really...
Yeah, it's like she had like off and on. She's like, okay, this is going to be the year of health.
Yeah.
And then it like kind of doesn't work out. And then finally it ends up.
Finally, she gets to the root of why she's...
Right. It is interesting to actually like, because for the most part, like she has all the same insecurities that like any woman or person has. But she's also like confident in her role as like the big girl in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I also just saw like a random thing. I think it was kind of funny how she like actually had like kind of like a pretty decent acting career in Australia, and then like transitioning over to America. Like I think Priyanka Chopra was kind of like that too, where you're like famous in a different country.
Yeah, but we don't even know.
Come over here, and it's just kind of like funny to be like, I don't know if it's gonna work here.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was kind of like,
or like,
fun.
Why would you leave that then?
Right. And like, I know, because I just wonder what the actual like being in the biz like in the different countries, because we have like Hollywood and what it's like, and the like you're famous there.
Well, she sounded like she was getting paid well,
pretty good. Yeah. Especially for like acting and stuff. But anyway, I just thought that was fun.
Yeah. So after the beginning part, that's kind of like a more present day type.
Right.
It flashes back to when she was a kid, and it kind of goes through more chronologically as we go. So she says that she didn't really have a lot of friends as a kid. Her family is, I would say, like a little bit like trashy, a little rough.
That's what it sounds like. Like white trash.
Yeah,
I think she said
Australian trash. I
and
guess.
They're like beagle breeders.
Yeah, the mom does that, and then they do the dog shows, and then the dad kind of has like a million different jobs
like
throughout
all over the place,
and he's kind of seems fine at first, and then the more that I liked how she did this too, because it was almost like her from like a young perspective, and then as she started to get older, she started to realize more things. But I guess trigger warning, she said that her dad was physically abusive, and also I would say like verbally abusive.
Yeah, and like just it seemed kind of like he was pretty like unhinged.
Yeah, like very deep-seated anger.
Yeah, like he just didn't feel good about himself and just like
took it out on others.
Grumpy and awful.
And he had a gambling problem. And then she said when she was little, like she always had like random side jobs to make some money. She was kind of like a little swindler, like the digging in the trash. And they had the lolly shop, and it was always something like she was always wanting to make money because they didn't really have a lot.
Right.
Then she starts kind of developing that unhealthy relationship with food, and kind of where
like
she's
sneaking it with the mom kind of,
and it was really about sugar, so a lot of binging too. And she this is interesting when she was like, I hid like my period from my mom, like we didn't talk about any of that, kind of like, I don't know, it seems like it's almost like the Catholic home where those things don't exist.
Right.
But I don't think they said that they were religious, really, did they? Like as a
I
family.
don't remember.
But that's just kind of what it felt like. Like, oh, these things happen, but you know, like we said before, when you turn like 12, you got that book on your bed, and that was the
Right.
conversation that you
Right.
had. So that was just kind of an interesting insight where she didn't have like a really strong relationship with her parents when she was younger. And then there was that funny story of that bush rat that was in their home at that one point. Do you remember that part?
I can't remember.
And it was like she was home alone for some reason, and there was that huge animal like in their house, and she was freaked out. And that just was a tidbit about Australia that made me really scared because everything is larger and scarier there. Then my notes say when she was in the private school, when she was in like the 7th grade. Did you have
like
anything else about
school.
younger?
Mostly just that she like ends up getting more confident and popular at some point. Like she had like teeth problems that didn't help.
Yeah. Because at one point she was feeling like she didn't really have any friends and was lonely, and then she became as she says, a gangster rapper.
Yeah, she's interested in rapping.
And that's when she kind of started making some friends because of that. And then her mom signed her up for drama classes, and she really didn't want to do it. She kind of went in kicking and screaming, but then she ended up loving them. And then she goes to a musical with her mom, and that she like loves it so much. So that was kind of when her love of the theatrics started. And then I wrote that she became like a little bit naughty when she was 15, and she started like pushing more boundaries, and she was listening to those motivational tapes that her dad had.
Yeah, like she finds some, and then that like kind of works for her.
Yeah. And she has a wild party for her sweet 16. And when it was at her house, and the cops were called 3 times, and it just like went off the rails.
This insane party. It was like, what was that movie? Project X.
Oh,
yeah.
Something? Where just more and more people came, and it just got really wild.
Crazy.
But like it was at her house with her parents.
Yeah, and it was like, and she's like, I ended up just like going to my room.
Yeah,
I was too overwhelmed.
And people were drinking, but I wasn't. Like it was...
you can't even have fun. But really though, that could totally happen. Like you're not even having fun because you're too worried about everyone else, and it's just getting out of control.
Yeah. And at school they had that lesbian play
that she's in. There is a point where she briefly talks about, I don't know exactly what it was, but she like is witness to this crime.
Yes, was that when she was in high school, or was that after?
I have it after the boarding school thing.
Okay.
So at some point, like right before she goes to South Africa, but that's kind of like part of why she like left the country.
And she says this, and she's like, I'm not going to discuss it.
I know. And she's like, and I'm still not going to discuss it. So she witnesses some crime,
and it was
like,
bad enough that she had to testify
and can't talk about it. And I'm like, it almost sounded like she went into like a form of like a witness protection program, but
in a weird way.
Yeah, like, so she ends up getting to go to like South Africa for this like program. Yeah. But it's like at the same time
as this happened. So it was a little weird. Before that, I think because with the boarding school, we forgot to say that it was, well, I guess this is obvious with the boarding school, but she's living there.
You're right.
Like she's not, so she's away from home. And then at one point she said that her mom would like call her and say,
right, it's like things are going downhill.
Come back. Yeah. Like I need you. And I thought that it was kind of really, really strong and brave of her to say no.
No. Yeah. She literally is like, no, I'm like taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And she's like, kind of feel bad for my siblings, but like I need to focus on myself.
And if she wouldn't have done that, if she moved home, like that would
She
have
wouldn't
been
have
a
a
completely
career.
different life.
I know. She wouldn't be where she is now.
No.
But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of insane to like be that brave as like a teenager and be like,
and to say that to your parent.
Literally.
So yeah, after schooling is like a little bit different too, because you know you have to like study to get to be able to go into a certain career.
Right.
So her sights were set on law school, and she studied so hard to get there and got to that point. But then she decided to become that youth ambassador and go to South Africa. And that was the post-apartheid South Africa. So it was actually like really
Intense.
terrifying to go there. Yeah.
Kind of wild.
She gets malaria.
Yeah, she gets malaria, like is literally gonna like die.
Yeah.
She gets in like these like they're like held hostage at one point.
That was crazy.
But that's also when she kind of like starts to do comedy stuff.
And then when she has malaria, she has a hallucination about winning an Oscar, and that kind of stays with her. And she's like,
which
I
hasn't
have to
happened yet,
become.
but
It could.
could.
She's like, I have to become this. This is my calling. And then it kind of like jumps forward a little bit, and it mentions about where she was called a liar.
15.
Yeah. Do you remember this?
I did remember that, but I didn't until she started talking about it.
Okay, I didn't recall.
Yeah, I just remember like everybody being like, she's this liar, she's lying about her age, but I don't remember like having like this strong like opinion on it. But she like sues that company, that media company, and like wins, which is awesome.
It was pretty big. And
but then once that reputation is out there though, which is what sucks about like being in media at all, or like being a celebrity, because it's like once somebody puts that out there, it's like they make that
stink.
Yep, it's like it's hard to shake it. But
she seems,
because I think she even kind of said too, like there's still gonna be people that don't believe me, but like
what are you gonna do?
Right.
And I mean,
she's still good
didn't
now.
she say that she like lost out on
something,
jobs
because of all this like drama?
Yeah, which I guess I would believe, just knowing Hollywood stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I totally believe it. And it's like it kind of like sucks when, or what was I gonna say?
Well, with losing jobs, it's one of those things where like you don't really know how it affected you, because those opportunities never came.
Right. And it's like people, if you got a bad reputation, it'd be interesting to see like if that come out now, like if all these like rumors, how people would react to it. Because even in 2015 was almost 10 years ago, but we were still in a pretty weird climate. Like it was like right before Me Too and stuff. So I wonder, you know, we were so like, ew, down with her. She lied about her age, even though that's not even a big deal.
No, who cares? But people weren't being super transparent on their social medias and stuff at that point as much as they are now either.
Right.
Yeah, that was just interesting. I don't really know why she brought it up at that point. I know. I think it made sense at the time, but I don't.
Yeah, there was a couple of times in the book where it like
jumps a little bit. Yeah.
Which isn't confusing in the book, but if you're like looking back on notes, it's a little.
But
there was like a couple of other things where I'm like, oh wait, we're back to here.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the high school, we like go back to the South Africa again at some point.
Yeah, because that was kind of a longer discussion. Then when she comes back from South Africa, she decides that she wants to go to that acting school, the NIDA. And she was rejected from there 4 times. Yeah. And this is where I kept having to kind of think about the timeline. Because what did she say? You can apply once a year.
Yeah.
So that was like 4 years of her life.
Right. So was that like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? Or was it like junior, senior college during law school? Because I know at this point she's still in law school. She
was continuing to do law school. So she's like fully in her 20s at this stage because she went to South Africa for a bit and then...
And she didn't even really have to do school there either, because she just was like done basically with her other school.
Yeah. She writes that play, the Westie monologues, and then that kind of gets her a little bit of success. It said around 2003 was when she started to gain a lot of the weight.
Yes.
And she wasn't feeling good, like for, her health, obviously. And she was leaning on sweets and unhealthy food for comfort. And I liked, again, throughout the rest of the book too, she kept saying this. She's like, for me, like, it wasn't that like I was predestined to be on the heavier side or that I had like a full-on health problem. It literally was that I was coping by eating the wrong foods.
Right.
And in turn, like that made her not feel well. And she was looking for happiness with that. She went to that comedy and power class, and that's when she realized that people like to laugh at people they don't want to sleep with. So that's where she kind of started to really lean into the
she's like getting roles because of the weight gain
and it's that physical comedy stuff too. And then she finds out about the polycystic ovary syndrome thing. She gets a commercial deal and is able to pay her debts off and get her own place. And then her mom hated that she would make herself look bad.
Yeah,
for
she's like,
comedy.
I don't get it.
Yeah, because that's when she did that show that
where
seemed
the men,
pretty demeaning.
Yeah, it was like what was she? It was like,
it was called Fat Pizza.
Was that the show or was that like a side thing? And then she was also on the show. But it's like the men were like not great to her. Like they ended up getting like mad at her and like kind of sabotaging her because she was like the star of the show and she wanted more money.
Yeah. But
they were like
no. And it was always kind of like she was the butt of the joke, but she was also in on it, so she would lean into that.
I know. I was like, that would be hard to like have your kid like basically be this like person that everyone's making fun of but also still love and like not getting it, especially from her mom's like generation.
And she's like,
I don't get why you're doing this.
Well, she said, wasn't it from that role that it like stopped her from getting jumped with her friend?
Because they're like, wait, you
are you whatever the name of her character
I know,
was.
it was
I
like
can't remember.
Fat something.
It was
again.
fat. Like how many times did she
it's like
but
so
sad.
And
she's like, hey guys, that's me. It was like in character and they're like, we love you.
Like, okay.
And they got pictures and everything. Then she did her one-woman show. And she finished law school after 10 years, she said.
But she got her done.
Yep, she did. So I just thought that was interesting too. So say she was like 18. Say we're literally 10 years forward from that.
Right.
We're sitting at 28 when she first comes over to the U.S. And I think she was actually closer to 30, like 29 or almost 30. And she got him. This is where she had that roommate who I think she was like
also bigger.
Yeah, but she was not getting
the
attention or roles. Yeah. And she ended up getting
she like tries to lose weight, but then Rebel is like just like eating whatever she wants and gets a freaking bridesmaid's role.
Yeah, she basically like walked into William Morris and got signed, which is like the biggest agency.
They're like, hey, we don't have one like you.
Yeah, we'll take you. Like she's basically not even trying. And
no, and then it's like she's like, yeah, that was like kind of affecting. I think her name was Monique. Was
her
the
roommate? Yeah.
After she let me come live out here with her.
Yeah, like that would hurt. She said that she was marketing herself as the female Jonah Hill, which I thought was kind of funny.
I know. I thought that was kind of funny too that she still put this in the book, even though there was all that drama. But that's what she felt,
Yeah, I know.
At the time,
she was honest about that. she did go on auditions every day, and then Bridesmaids came along, and I thought it was interesting too where she said, after that I basically got paid nothing after paying everything I had to pay to SAG for the dues.
And then like she talks a little bit too about like waiting for these big movies to come out for so long, and you're like, I'm in this huge movie, but like
nobody knows yet. She said it was a lonely time because it does take a while for like post-production,
and if you're not anybody before that,
what do you do? Then she had a Jenny Craig deal, she said, in Australia before Pitch Perfect, right? Was that in Australia?
Yes,
and then
I think so.
She had to get out of it because of they wanted her to be Fat Amy. So she's like, I dropped out of that, and it was like good paying. And she said that she thinks that she would have lost a lot of weight if she would have stayed in the program because she actually kind of liked it.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting too, because had she done that, would her career have been what it is now?
And I love too how open she was about like, yeah, like I could have lost the weight, but then like it always felt like she was like acknowledging like, yeah, like I could do this, but it's easier to be this size. And it's like really working out for me. And I thought that was kind of a cool.
Yeah, because even during Pitch Perfect, she was like, yeah, they want me to be fat. So like I'll eat whatever I want and
I know, and
totally lean in.
It's so interesting to get like a completely opposite of what we hear for everybody else's like
lose weight,
experience.
Lose weight. Yeah. And she said she thought about the weight a lot while she was filming this because she could eat whatever she wanted, but she noticed that she was different from the other girls on the cast, and like when it comes to like the costumes and being on the photo shoots and stuff, it was just very apparent because the other girls were pretty small or normal sized, and she was basically being told to eat everything from craft services.
Right.
And she also had a big crush on Adam Devine. She was
and that was like an interesting thing too, because she's like, but yeah, he's hooking up with the smaller girl, but him and I are like talking and having the best time, and it's like it was just like he didn't view her like
as
that,
like a sexual option. Yeah. She said that a lot of women would come up to her after Pitch Perfect and say that she's so brave.
I know, which is like that weird compliment, not compliment thing where you're like,
and it's so silly. What do you mean? I'm brave for being
big
heavy
and like getting up there, but yeah, being talented and hilarious.
Right. It's kind of insane.
I know, but then it's like that's the way it was.
Yeah. But like that makes you self-conscious,
right? And
too.
like, how many compliments have you gotten that are like kind of like that?
Not
like,
really compliments. Like, what are you even
like,
supposed
hold on
to say?
a second. Yeah, like
you know?
that's so cool that you are comfortable being so gross.
Yeah,
and you're like,
oh,
I'm not.
Like you're actually slapping me in the face with that. She said that she had a lot of fame, pros and cons after Pitch Perfect, and she kind of felt, I took it as a little bit of like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, where you're like mega famous.
Yeah. She had obviously the loss of privacy and then the pressure and anxiety, but then she said like, you know, I can get basically whatever reservation I want, or people would send you stuff. And so there's obviously all those pluses. She mentioned that Super Fun Night sitcom.
Yeah, which I don't remember. I meant to look that up.
I don't remember that either. I don't know what that aired on.
What? Yeah, like was that a streaming thing?
I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of it, but that was kind of just like a little blip on the radar.
It sounds like, I can't remember if she says why it was.
I can't remember either, but And did she write that one? I think
thought
she
she
did.
did,
Yeah. Then she, at this point, her parents were separated. So at this point in her career, they were not together anymore. And she really has thought a lot about her childhood and her relationship with her dad and how he treated the family. And she has not forgiven him, but she decides that it would be the right thing to do to invite him to the Pitch Perfect screening, but she still feels conflicted about it. She has dinner with him and her brother, and that was the last time that she saw him before he ended up passing. And it seemed like he was trying to mend the relationship. And at this point in the book, she got kind of emotional when she was talking about him.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it was a very complicated relationship that was so complicated towards that end of his life too. So it was like this. And then
the end of his life happened pretty suddenly, and she didn't even really get to mend a chance to mend it. And she said she was really sad after the funeral, but she had to work on that sitcom, so she was kind of flying back and forth
like
for a
showbiz,
bit.
Man.
Yeah.
It's like you get like maybe a week off.
Right, and then back to being the funny one.
Yeah.
And then she read those letters that she wrote, which I thought were kind of an interesting addition as well.
It was.
And then we get to chapter 23.
About SBC.
Mm-hmm.
So he sounds like an absolute nightmare. Like, I believe everything she's saying.
I do too, 100%.
I mean, especially, it's like these type of people can get away with this stuff. And nobody calls them out on it. And I mean, even her, like, she like tries to stand up for it. But I mean, this is the first time we're hearing about him this way, because it's such like a complicated situation when you're the one being pressured to do it. And he has all these friends around and all these people that just like praise him up. It's like you really can't stand up to these situations. But she did try like a little bit.
Well, and I think she was kind of in an awkward situation too, because she kind of looked up to him and as a comedy, peer, but he really treated her horribly. And it's just that power struggle. Like, what can I say? And she even tried to tell people about it and nothing really happened. So she said it started out where SBC hated her MTV Movie Award jokes and like totally made her self-conscious about it. He basically said that they sucked, and then she's like, oh my God, I have to rewrite everything. And it was total panic. She also mentioned a previous hotel room incident with an Australian director as like, I've been through stuff like this with men in the industry before, but she didn't really go into detail about that. And then is when we get to the brothers Grimsby situation, and she said that things were basically stacked in his favor in general. She kind of threw a dig at him that he doesn't seem to write his own jokes.
Yeah, she even says at one point when they're like filming and stuff that she would say jokes and then he would like take them basically.
Yeah. And then he kept wanting her to be naked in the movie.
Yeah, and just like, just to be like funny, and it just isn't funny when someone's trying to humiliate you. Like, it was supposed to be a joke. Yeah, I was like, no, it's just not necessary for this character to be naked.
Yeah, and it seemed the way that she was describing it that it was just for humiliation thing, like to get his own
like
kicks.
And it's like, ugh, it
like,
just
that's
is so gross.
She was the only one that was really saying no to some of the things that he was like, saying, which probably pissed him off.
Right, and like the finger up the butt thing, which is just like...
And I totally believe this too, where he's like, oh, we're filming this scene, and then you come in and it's like, we're in a basement with somebody with an iPhone. Where's the crew? He just wanted to make her feel uncomfortable. Even with the costuming, she said it was like just ridiculous, the things that he wanted her to be in. And it was like laughing at her, not with her.
I know, or even like, and then to just think like, cause she has to like kiss him in the movie, just to
Yeah.
have to kiss somebody that is being so disgusting and degrading towards you. It's like, ugh, what
disgusting.
an awful feeling.
And he constantly was making derogatory comments about women in general and her size. And then she talked about that extra scene with like the finger up the butt thing. After that happened, she said she called her William Morris, Endeavor's agent, immediately, but he was conveniently repped by them as well.
Yeah, they were kind of like, well, tough crap.
If it happens again, let us
try.
know. Yeah. And then it was noted that this happened before the Me Too movement. Then she was sent reshoots for a very graphic sex scene. And then she was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous.
Right.
She asks for a meeting with everybody, but then turns out that female producer didn't come and everybody was on his side.
Yeah, all men.
Yeah.
Which has got to be the worst feeling ever, my gosh.
So that whole experience seems like an absolute horror show. Like he seems just like a
like he's
terrible
gonna ruin
person.
her career.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, and the fact that he didn't want that out tells me that it's true.
I know, just in
like,
that it's
come on.
I know, and she like doesn't want to do press for this movie, and I don't think she does.
I don't think she does either.
I think she literally is like, no,
I'm totally done with this. And then later on, they ended up dropping him or parting
like
ways.
it kind of seems like it kind of like quietly went away, but that he's a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that wasn't the first time that that had happened with him and female co-stars. But that's what we said before, like with that funny girl, you know, it's like, oh, well, you're almost not really even like a woman that deserves my respect.
Right.
So,
it's like you're just our prop or like you're one of us. So you have to be, because you know, sometimes men can be like just even if you think of like the Jackass franchise, it's like, well, just because you're a little bigger of a woman doesn't mean you don't want to be treated like a woman.
Right.
Like, it's just like,
it's
I'm
so
still
degrading.
a woman. Yeah, it's like, just because I do comedy and I go there a lot doesn't mean I want to go there this time.
Yeah, or I want to be just humiliated.
Right, which is what it sounds like what he was trying to do.
In 2015, she does that like Biggest Loser resort thing. And she said this is kind of the beginning of her doing these types of retreats multiple times with like the weight loss and getting healthy. She said she ended up gaining the weight back. She said you need to love yourself, but she looks for love in someone else, which then we kind of start talking about like relationship stuff. She's trying to get a boyfriend so bad. And then she like gets invited to this party and it turns out to be an orgy.
I know, like you know, with everything coming, and I know this is like different. Yeah. But it's like you do kind of wonder like, even was this party all consensual? Was this
because she didn't even know what she was walking into?
Whoa, yeah,
which was kind of it was kind of hilarious. But if you were in that situation, you'd be terrified.
I know, right?
But that was
like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny the way that she was like, it was an orgy, like.
And she like, here's your Molly.
Yeah. And she has like no sexual experience at this point.
Right.
Her mom was diagnosed with breast cancer after that. And then she's like, you know what?
Okay, though.
Yeah, her mom was okay. And this was kind of the point where Rebel was like, life is too short. Like, I need to put myself out there. And that's where she met that Mickey Gooch, I wrote down his last name.
I just have Mickey.
Yeah, I think I looked it up because I don't think she said it in the thing, but I was like, who are these boyfriends? And then she loses her virginity at 35. And then we're at like 2015, 16.
I like how she kind of talked about like, because she's always been like the bigger person and not attractive, that like dating is never on her radar for like kind of a long time, where it's like she doesn't even think it's like a possibility for her.
When she masked it with, no, I'm just focusing on my career.
Right. You're like, because it's not even like, I don't even want to get hurt thing. And I was just like, ugh.
It was sad.
It is sad.
Yeah.
It's just like a sad when you're not like the conventionally attractive.
Yeah.
That you don't get to like have those same experiences.
And maybe she could have had more.
Yeah, it's like
if
I told
she
her,
put
and
herself out there.
Yeah, because she even said I don't know when she says this, but there's like one point when she gets like famous and stuff, like a waiter, like a hot waiter, like gives her, and she's like, no, that's not even real, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, so she just can't see herself.
Can't believe it. Yeah. Then everything was like good with Mickey. Like she seemed to really love him and he really liked her too. But then it comes out that he went to rehab 17 times.
That's a lot.
And yeah, no freaking kidding. And then he relapsed after she gave him a sleeping pill on the plane to Dubai, which I guess like, I think she knew about like the rehab stuff, but not to or knew that he struggled, but not like to the extent maybe. But I remember when she told the sleeping pill part, I'm like, you're so naive. Like,
I know.
I
really feel like that was a genuine naive moment.
She knew he was an addict and she still offered him a sleeping pill. So that was, and I think that looking back, she kind of felt guilty
like,
about that.
I know. Like she just like, oh gosh, I made him relapse.
Yeah. Which I mean, she did,
but like
he made a choice, but
right,
like,
and it's like she just didn't even think about it.
So it was kind of and then he like met her family and everything, but then they ended up breaking up a little bit after the relapse, and then they kind of rekindle at one point.
Especially if you're like not even like in very many relationships, and then that relationship is with an addict.
Yeah,
like,
and it's your first one.
Literally,
then, they after breaking up is when she starts development for Isn't It Romantic, which I forgot about that movie.
No, speaking of Priyanka Chopra.
Yeah, and she said that was her biggest career year to date was 2017. She filmed 3 movies, and since she made about $20 million, and she gave a lot of money to her family, charities, and she bought property. So she's into investments. Oh, I thought this was interesting too, that the SAG minimum for Pitch Perfect was $65,000, which is just like, I know that with the movie industry, the money that you can make is kind of just like ridiculous for us to even think about. And just because you make that, it doesn't mean that you're going to work for the next 3 years, you know? So when you think about it that way, it's like, well, 65,000 for one movie doesn't seem like that much.
Right.
But like in our thoughts, it's like, okay, so you filmed for 6 months maybe tops,
right,
and then you made $65,000. Like that's more than I make for a whole year of working,
right.
You know,
most people.
Yeah, like that was just a lot to take in.
I know, and she gave numbers in this book,
Yeah,
and
she
usually
did.
nobody will give you a single.
I appreciate that. I love
their
the
money.
numbers. She said that for Pitch Perfect 3, they were all going to be replaced.
Yeah, with that Haley Seinfeld, but
and
she ends up being in it too because they wanted like pay raises and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you can't make the movie without us, basically.
Yeah, and then they're like, yo, shoot, you're right, we can't. And then that's how they got it. I don't think I saw Pitch Perfect 3.
I think I did. I want to say I did, but I don't remember much about it.
Yeah, if I saw it, then 2 and 3 really bleed together for me. Then she says that 2018 was the year of fun. This is when we kind of get like years were focused on certain themes.
Yes, which I think is kind of fun. Like that's kind of a fun way to like
live your life.
It is like I'm really gonna focus in on this, and it like all ends up like working out for her. So
Because for this year, she's like, I'm going to just do things for myself. She was kind of at the point of her career where she could take time off and she was financially secure. So she's like, I'm going to do fun stuff. She's
She's like living it up, rich and famous.
Yeah, in Aspen at that Cloud9 club that we always see celebs at. And she meets a group of guys. Jacob with his Snapchat friends, and they're kind of just like hot and whatever. And then she meets Swedish Teddy Bear, which the whole time I'm like, is that who she got engaged to? Oh no, it wasn't him. Is that who she got engaged to? Like, I couldn't remember.
I know, she's like, she gives names and then she doesn't give names.
Because I thought that she was engaged to that guy, but I don't think that she was. The one that she was with right before
I thought
the Bush guy.
I thought she was.
I thought that she was too, but
I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, she kind of loves Swedish Teddy Bear, but it doesn't really end up working out. He didn't like her fame. And then she said that 2019 was going to be the year of love, and she joins Raya and has some interesting experiences.
It does seem she gives everyone a fair chance, which I thought was kind of a fun view on dating.
Like, she totally was like, if I'm asked out, I'll go. She went on 50 dates in a year, she said, which I think it's funny that she documented it.
Which is wild.
She said she's learning about sex. She found what she wanted and what she didn't want in a partner. At this point, she was interested in men and not women. And then a friend set her up with that Jacob Bush, who she thought was super hot, but then she ended up breaking up with him. And then we moved to 2020, which was the year of health.
Yes.
And this is where we bring in the tennis player.
Yes, which, like, this whole thing was kind of like sad.
I know.
So it was like
it really was. It was like an unrequited love.
I know, and it's so complicated. Like, it's dating and everything is so complicated in like heteronormative relationships, and then kind of being like, does this girl like me?
Yeah.
Does she not? Like, it was just like, oh man, it just felt so hard.
And then it was like clear signs that it's over, and she couldn't stop herself, which is also so relatable.
I know, especially because you're like trying to kind of figure yourself out, and you're trying, and you can't just find somebody to figure yourself, right. It's just like a whole sad.
I know it was. So we know who this is. She doesn't ever mention it, but I did some internet digging, and it seems to be widely known that it is about Karina Machova, she was 23 at the time. So there was quite an age difference. And I sent you, I think it was during the U.S. Open that she was playing. So she still is an active tennis player today and doing pretty well. But it was so up and down. Like, she doesn't know if they're really going on a date. She doesn't know if she likes women.
And it's kind of like, to me, it felt like, too, that this girl was kind of like
playing it a little bit. Like, it totally did.
But I see both sides, because I also felt like maybe she was being like a little too, not desperate, but like
kind of.
Yeah, and then it was like probably turning this girl off. And
yeah, like it really didn't seem like she wanted to be with her at all. But
right. But yeah, wanted her there anyway.
And like Rebel said that they were basically like long distance, just texting and stuff. And she said the texts would get kind of intense, but then every time they'd try to make plans to meet, it would fall through. And Rebel like really wanted to meet her, and she just kind of wasn't really making any sort of effort. And then she tells her that she can't be in a relationship with her, but like Rebel could not let it go.
No.
And then they end up sleeping together, and then absolutely nothing happens after that.
And I think like at a point too, Rebel loses a bunch of weight, and she's like thinks this is gonna help,
is gonna be
and then it doesn't, and it's like, ugh.
I know. It was just it was
so
almost just like hard to listen
it
to
was
that.
because it was so, and I feel like even when she was talking about it now, she like still was like, oh,
It's so cringy.
I
I know.
was
It's
like,
one of those
ugh.
things where you reflect on something like
I
that
can't believe
and you're
how
like,
lame I was.
oh my God, what was I
Why?
thinking? But at the time, it seems so normal. But that was her first moment of thinking like, wait, like maybe I am interested in women and maybe
Right.
that's what I need to be doing. But after that, she's kind of still on and off with that Jacob Bush.
Yeah.
And then she completes her weight loss goal during COVID. And she was pretty open on Instagram with Jacob Bush too.
Yeah. And then she also kind of feels like she's getting treated differently now that she's lost
the weight. Yeah.
Which has gotta just be
I can't imagine. Because
such a
it's
mind
so
mess.
real.
It is.
It's so real.
Literally. And then to like career-wise, you're getting treated differently.
Yeah.
Like men are treating you
Yeah.
differently. Like it's just
It's awful. Even just like a normal person on the street, like, oh, they held the door for me now.
right.
Like
And
those
you're
are the
they
things.
never
I mean,
would have.
what a stab. Like
I
that
know,
really
it's so heartbreaking.
that really hurt. She goes back to Australia during COVID and then she's like really feeling good because she's focused on her health and she's just feeling great. She's kind of worked through the stuff of like, why is she eating this way? Using it as like a coping skill. But then she starts to get kind of worried that now that she lost the weight, that she's going to be less interesting than how she was before.
Which again, it's like, you're like, I'm like every other skinny girl now.
Yeah.
Such a confusing thing.
I know. Then we're at around 39, 40, and she decides that she wants to freeze her eggs.
I know. Oh, and she does say like, that ends up being one of the main reasons that she ends up wanting to actually get healthy is because she's like, I do want to have kids at some point. So that's really like, finally, she's like
the motivator
doing it for real. Even though that was kind of like, I know she was trying to get healthy for that, but I really would have liked if she was like, I just want to be healthy because I want to be here long, you know, like stuff like that. Because it still felt like she wasn't fully doing it for herself, even though she still was.
She is, but it
like her end goal.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But it was like, I'm like, no, just do it for yourself if that's what you want. But
it seems like
it was.
It was just there were like multiple motivations for it.
Right.
She said like we already discussed, the freezing eggs thing was harder than she expected. She ends up buying sperm because there's more likely for the like everything to
like
survive if it's a fertilized egg and an embryo.
Egg.
Yeah, and then she ends up with one viable embryo. At the end of that, she does multiple rounds of the egg retrieval, and she was open and said she spent about $100,000.
You know, it's just bleak.
But I liked that she said that.
No,
because it is freaking expensive.
I know, but allegedly, both presidential candidates are trying to make that more accessible.
Yeah, allegedly.
It sounds
caveat.
good. Yeah, like I don't know when this is allegedly gonna go into, but that
it needs to happen.
I know, like where they want to hold like these insurances more accountable for this stuff, because it is frustrating when you do hear these like celebrity stories who can like pay for this stuff, and we're just all out here, well, if you don't have it done by whatever time,
right? Or like,
it's
they
happening.
Can do 5 rounds where it's like, well, I could only afford one
and I got one embryo,
or that
egg.
didn't even end up being viable. And then it's like, well, I just wasted all that money. Like it really does.
It's very bleak.
Sucks. Yeah. Okay, here's where I messed up. So she has this huge party for her birthday in Ireland for her 40th. And then it actually ends up being 41 because of the COVID thing. And she feels so much love from everybody
Right,
around
I'm gonna
her.
have to find my phone in a minute because that's where the last of my notes are.
Oh, okay. She's feeling love, but she's feeling that she's missing out on that romantic love. And this is where I misheard, because I thought that she was talking about Hugh Jackman, but it's this other guy with a similar name that's her friend. And I saw his name and I forgot to write it down. I don't know if you wrote it down.
No. But I just had like a friend.
It sounded like Hugh Jackman. And I'm like,
how
wow, I didn't
sweet.
know that they were that close. Like this whole time in my head, I'm like, oh my God, Hugh Jackman
That's
sounds
so
so amazing.
nice.
Like who knew? But it wasn't him at all. And he's the one that says, you know what? I have this friend Ramona who I think would be good for you. And they just kind of...
And they just got married recently.
Yes, that's an update.
A couple days ago.
Yep. In a beautiful Italian wedding. They both wore off-the-shoulder white dresses.
I was literally thinking that. I'm like, I wonder if they didn't know what each other's dresses were, or if they did that on purpose.
I wonder, too, because you almost think you wouldn't want to do that
the same dress.
Yeah.
But they were pretty similar.
But that would be cute if they didn't know each other's styles.
I actually think they look similar.
Yeah, they do, because they're so blonde and stuff. They
have a similar face.
So this guy who sounds like Hugh Jackman sets her up with Ramona, and they just have a text introduction, and then they kind of go from there. They start texting each other and then FaceTiming each other, and like Rebel's like, I had this really strong connection with this woman and it just felt really right, and it was just kind of beautiful. So in 2021 then is when she's been quietly dating Ramona, and an Australian publication threatens to out her if she doesn't give them an exclusive interview. And then we kind of go backwards again, where she talks about like their first time meeting, but she's like flash forward to when they're in the car outside of this restaurant and this is happening, and like they don't know what to do because they're happy, but they're not really ready to let everybody else know.
I know, which is tough anyway as a celebrity, and like trying to keep your relationship kind of private anyway, and then people trying to figuring out
you're
that
saying that now you're in this same-sex relationship, which unfortunately is still newsworthy.
Right.
It's like, okay, this sucks now. Yeah,
I know. And I also kind of thought we didn't get like a ton of their relationship, but it's newer. But also I feel like it just works. So there's not like all this like drama happening. So there's not like a ton to say other than it works.
Yeah, she did say when they finally met for the first time, like she was kind of nervous and it was a little awkward, but there was so much sexual tension, and then they make out in the bathroom because they only have like a weekend to see each other, and they ended up spending a ton of time together. And again, I'm like, they met up with Hugh Jackman for dinner, but it's not Hugh Jackman, and I'm like, that is so cute.
We love that.
Like
for Hugh Jackman and Rebel.
And I literally read an article like 2 days ago, and I was like, oh, it wasn't Hugh Jackman. But then they just basically were together.
I know. But then it's like, hold on, I was working with a surrogate.
Yeah, like, surprise, I'm gonna have a baby.
Well, and then the first time
it was really scary because
it's a baby boy, but then the surrogate miscarries that one.
And then they have the baby girl embryo.
And she's like, I'll accept the baby.
Yeah. And then
at that point,
the embryo. So then she like tells people about it. And then there were complications where the little embryo wasn't growing, and they thought that it was not viable.
Yeah. And there was a time too where the surrogate tests positive for alcohol.
Yes.
And it was like a fake thing.
Yes, that was crazy.
She's like, oh my God, and then she's like, freaking out like the surrogate is drinking
like
alcohol.
how could this happen?
Yeah.
And then everybody's blaming the surrogate. And she's like, no,
I'm not lying.
Yeah, and then it turned out to be like a problem with the machine or something.
Or like it was like something.
A false positive.
Gosh, that's so like, what if they would have like tried to terminate the baby
Literally.
or something over this situation?
And then sued the surrogate or it could have been horrible.
Nightmare. Like I hope somebody was held accountable for that.
I know, right? Like it was just so horrible.
I just get so freaked out with medical stuff sometimes, and that did not help.
No, I mean that was terrifying.
But the baby's born.
I did want to say, yeah, the baby ends up being born. That's her baby now, baby Royce. And it was like so beautiful. And she talks about just everything with her daughter, and her family's complete with Ramona and Royce. And she just feels hopeful about, like, she wants the positive things about her to be passed to her daughter, like how brave she is and some of her intelligence. And she's very cognizant about what she doesn't want to be passed to her daughter, like her emotional eating.
Yes.
I did want to say, too, before we move on, about like just the publication threatening to out them. It is so crazy that even that was like 2021 or whatever.
Like barely.
And we're so like, why is that a news story? And it's just insane that we still have this stigma with same-sex couples and relationships, and we feel like, oh, we're moving so forward and we're progressive as a society, but in a way we're not, because
I know
people are still nervous to share that part of themselves.
I know because, not to go on a Taylor Swift thing, but there's always been like that gaylor theories and stuff, and it's like, why are we owed someone's sexuality at all? And if they want to tell us, they can't, because it's not like Taylor's come out and said I'm straight either.
Yeah, but we're more assume.
Right, and it's like we're so much more accepting of those heteronormative relationships. And it is wild that we would, it's like, as far as we know, because I mean, I guess if you think about it too, like Rebel Wilson didn't come out until she was in her 40s.
Yeah.
And she, we learned that she wasn't sure what she felt. So it's like, we only know her as dating men, and now she's with a woman. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it still shouldn't be like this scandalous thing that you're like getting blackmailed over.
I know. Well,
we're just not owed that, even though we want to know it sometimes.
But it's really none of our business.
Yeah.
And I think like even the fact of just, why do we consider it normal to be in a heterosexual relationship and not normal to be in a homosexual relationship? Like, who made those standards? Oh, we did. And we just set them and then went with it and thinks anything else outside of that is weird. And I liked how she was like, I don't really put a label on myself.
Yeah, she does end up saying that in the end. It's like, well, no, like I'm in love with the person that I'm in love with.
Which I think is so interesting, because even that is kind of a complicated concept for us to really
and it's like
understand almost, or accept.
And it's like with all these like different, with like the language, like pansexual, bisexual, and it's like, maybe you're not fully sure, and it's not fair for us to be like, well, she's pansexual then because she likes a person for who they are.
We're just gonna label why. Why do we need to?
Just let her
be.
Love who she wants.
Let her figure it out. Yeah. Why does it matter so much? Then that was kind of like the end of it, where she had her daughter.
Like where we are now.
Yeah, and then now, like we just said, she just got married. Her daughter's what, like 3, 4, 3, I think now,
maybe,
or 2, around there.
Maybe a little younger, but I could be wrong.
Well, you're probably right, because I bet she was born in like 2022, probably. So she's probably 2.
Thinking.
Yeah.
It's wild too to think like in her situation where it's like she's been working on this like surrogate thing, then to like get into a relationship where it's like they didn't do that together.
Yeah.
Like, I just wonder, like,
And she totally gave her an out. She's
Yeah,
like, if
she's
this
like,
isn't what you want, I
this
get it.
happened. I know.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting, like, what that dynamic would be. Like, I wonder what I'm sure she loves the baby and stuff, but like, this wasn't something like I was pursuing.
Yeah.
Not that maybe, I mean, of course she probably wanted kids or something, but then to be like, but I love this person. So we'll do this kid thing together, but they haven't been together like
that
a long
long.
time.
I
And
know.
to be like raising this baby together. And like, I'm sure like if they split up or something that they would maybe have like a 50-50 thing, but it's still like kind of a really complicated, like
should it be 50? Like, that's the weird thing.
And it's like such a modern, like, thing.
Yeah, it really
like,
it's modern, but she makes it seem so normal. Like, this is just life. Overall, like, I thought that she was very honest in the book. From what I know, like, again, I'm not a huge Rebel Wilson fan either. So to me, like, I just am going to believe what she's telling us because I don't have a reason not to.
I know that's like the things with these books. It's like, I'm just going to take, it looks like born late or like November 7th, 2022.
Okay, so she's going to be 2.
Yeah, so it's like she's only known a life with like her 2 moms. But anyway, what were we saying?
That I just kind of take what she says at face value.
Yeah, that's what, like, I guess we have to when we do these memoirs. But I mean, for this, like, I believe her more than I believe. Like, I believe this is her truth versus some of the other people.
Yeah.
Like, some people, I'm like, I kind of want to hear the other side of that.
Because she did say negative things.
Yeah, she did.
Like, honestly, everything about her, like, weight and stuff is so... Just if we're talking about Hollywood and stigmas and everything, it's like, wow, like, that is really kind of amazing that you're talking so openly about, like, you just excessively eating for years and years and years.
I know. And it was so, it was so interesting to hear, like, just the other side of that where, you know, I wonder if an actress who was always told to lose weight and did lose the weight, I wonder how they would feel like reading this book. Like, I wish I could have had like the freedom in the body, but also has the freedom in her body, but doesn't.
Yeah, it was
at the
that
same
weird...
time. So it's kind of like this weird experience.
Yeah. Just kind of like what I said at the beginning, like, I did feel like, even though she is a celebrity, that she was very, like, she acknowledged that and was very thankful.
She was good at that throughout the whole time. And even like her rise in Hollywood wasn't what others people's were too. Like, she had like the experience, but it was also cool to hear because she was older, even though she was still more experienced then. But still to see like her have this successful career when she's older. There was like a ton of information in this book.
There was so much.
Like, every line was so much information that it's like we probably missed a ton of stuff.
Oh, yeah, because you couldn't possibly...
I know, there was so much. I'm like, I think I'm getting...
Yeah, there was no way that you could write it all down.
This is a jam-packed book.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I liked it. The only thing, we forgot to say that she did put the proposal in at the end. And she and Ramona are, in fact, Disney adults.
They are. Oh, yeah, that was a little...
Like, yeah, I don't
she
love
definitely
that,
like talks about that throughout the book. Like,
yeah,
she
does.
Freaking loves
Disney. She would take her family all the time. But like, it was really cute, I thought, when she said like, I thought I wanted a prince, but I really wanted a princess, and I found my Disney princess in Ramona. Like, that was a sweet thing. And I think that even though to me that proposal at Disney would be horrible and I would not like that, it's what both of them liked, and I thought it was sweet.
And I love the way Rebel is like cringy, but embraces
Yeah.
it. Like, I just kind of love, like, no, I like Disney, and that's the end of the story. I don't care what anyone else thinks.
Yeah,
like,
she
I
makes
just love
it
that.
endearing. Where
Mhm.
sometimes, like with other people or celebrities, it's like they're just cringy. But with Rebel,
And
she's like, I own
I
it. Like,
know.
I'm fine with
Duh.
it. Yeah. So,
I'll-
and I thought that it was cute how she and Ramona had so many things in common, and that like the Disney proposal was just one of those things where she knew, like, I want to make it so special,
Yeah.
and Ramona would love this too.
Mhm.
So that was just really
It was
cute.
It was cute.
Yeah. But yeah, I know that like she does have a lot of privileges and is able to do a lot of things that the normal person wasn't able to do. But at the end of the day, like for me as somebody who does not have children but would like to have children and would like to find that person, that like love of my life or whatever, it did make me feel like there shouldn't be a timeline on this. Like, why do we put a timeline on these things? And she is proof that, like, you know, okay, even if she like ended up not being able to have a kid, she did still find her life partner and
Right.
has experienced so many beautiful things because of that. And it happened when she was in her 40s.
Mhm.
Like, that to me was just really encouraging.
Yeah.
And that's like the overall vibe of what I took from the book.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to somebody to read.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, especially if you're a fan.
Yeah, if you're not a fan, it still is interesting. And she does tell so many other stories about
There's
that are
so
funny
much.
or like
Yeah, there's just
about
so
different
much.
celebrities. Oh, the other thing I want to say, like she is so well liked in the industry too. Like there
Mhm.
were so many stories where she's like, "Oh, I was with this celebrity,
And
and
I'm
I
like,
was with
Brad
this celebrity."
Pitt held my hand
Yeah.
and walked me down the whatever behind the Oscar or some.
The stage,
Award
wherever.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like there were so many things where she's like, "Oh yeah, I shared a jet with
I
this
know,
person."
and that's
or-
why it's kind of fun with those like humble brags.
Yeah, and
It's
but
like,
it really
it's fun.
felt like it was a humble brag.
I
Like
know,
she
and
was
she's
just
like,
sharing her
right,
life.
and she loved it too.
Yeah,
She's like,
she can't
this is
believe
pretty
some
big
of
deal.
it too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then what was the one was it with Chris Hemsworth? And she's like, was that movie
Or
that she
was it Liam? Him?
Was it with Liam?
I think it might have been Liam.
And she was like, "Yeah, he's hot."
I know, and I made out with him.
Yeah.
What about it?
Yeah.
I wrote that. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. She didn't write it.
But
But
that
still.
was, yeah, it was cool. And she talked about a lot of other projects. She talked about that new movie that she has coming out that I can't remember the name of it. And like she does a lot, like she writes a lot too. Like she really does more than I thought that she did.
Yes.
Within the
and she
industry.
has a law degree, so
Yeah.
we might
So
get
she's
Rebel the
smart
lawyer.
too. Yeah. She's a little bit of everything. But yeah, I thought it was a good one. She's definitely spilled the tea.
Yeah, we got a little bit of tea spilling.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, should we do our recommendation as the book, or do you have another and the substance? Should we put that
Yeah.
in as another one for this
Let's go
week?
consume some media.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Read a book and then go see a movie. The Rebel Rising and The Substance. But do it, well, hopefully by the time you hear this, you can find it in a theater near you.
Yeah,
Because
we'll see.
it might be, maybe it's just our area.
Could be.
You know, I don't know. Okay, well, we haven't decided what we're going to do for our next book yet. So we'll update you guys on that soon. And remember, if you have any requests or suggestions, let us know, because we do take those into consideration, or we would like to, if you would tell us. And you can find us on our socials. Don't forget to subscribe to us or follow us on all the podcast platforms. And if you really liked this episode or liked us as a whole, make sure to give us a really nice rating and review. And we will see you next week.
Bye.